Well, hello, everyone. Welcome again to my go-to shoe, Faith, Hope, and Love, a journey through loss, live on, strengthened soul. And of course, before we get started, like, subscribe, and share. Hit the notification button so you know when Pauline's coming back. Well, we're back. We're back again with the part 2 of the interview with Montez, another celebration of men. So listen and be blessed. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I love you all so very much.
I chose not to be the victim.
So that being said, you did a lot. You listened to your mom, and you heard what she had to say, and she shared everything that would make you the better man that you are today. And because of your dad, you met your dad at what? How old were you when you met your father? So you know.
19 years old in New York. He wore Old Spice, and you could smell Old Spice. I knew Dad was at Grand Central Station is where I met him, and I knew Dad was already in the station because I could smell the Old Spice because he wore a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
But Dad was a merchant seaman. He traveled around the world. He was in the Army. I didn't know till later on he achieved the rank of sergeant. My dad was good looking, dark skinned, and he was a hustler. He was born on a sharecropper's farm. He went north, the Great Migration north, looking for opportunity. He left the ravages of the South and went north. And he went, he was in Florida, he'd be in New York, he'd be here, he'd be there. But Dad had to travel a bumpy road, and he had to do the best that he could. But Dad, I would say as a father, he failed, but I would say that as a man of the world, I got a chance to sit down with him and ask him. Dad knew Count Basie. He knew people that worked on Wall Street. He was a porter at LaGuardia Airport.
Okay.
And Dad told me one of the things that he never did is he said, I never took bags that had drugs on them. He said, I never did that because I knew what would happen. He ran the numbers. And he also had a little cigarette stand that he kept. It was some place, it was a little old stand where he sold cigarettes and, stuff like that. Dad was a hustler.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you.
And I say that with as I grew older and you understand the culture and some of the things we have to overcome, I became more empathetic with my dad. But I do know if my dad had gone to school and had a formal education, I can tell you right now, without a doubt, he would have been the CEO.
Right. To say the least.
Yeah. But those survival skills and what he knew about the world, Dad traveled around the world. He knew everybody, very outgoing, very gregarious, and he read a lot of books.
So you're a lot like your dad, it sounds like, because you're well read and you love the arts, and your dad seems like he loves some of those same things. So you probably are quite a bit like him yourself, unbeknownst to yourself, probably.
Well, more because I didn't have that much time doing the formative years with my dad. It was my mom who exposed me to classical music, Mendelssohn, Schubert, Rachmaninoff. Then Miles Davis, Horace Silver, Gloria Lynn, Sarah Vaughan, all of the music. And in those days, you had the albums. She wanted to know who's playing the drums, who's playing the saxophone. I was a mama's boy, so I would sit there and read the album covers and then sit at the table and ask my mother to ask me who's playing with Horace Silver, who's playing with Art Blakey. Because I was a mama's boy and I wanted to put a smile on her face at how much I knew about jazz. But it also, because my mother exposed us to art, all the different types of architecture, Romanesque, Doric, Ionic architecture. I could be around any class of people and be comfortable. And that's what she wanted for us. She didn't want us to have limits of people that we could be around and relate to. She prepared us for the world.
Wow. Let me ask you this question because you were raised by your mom and she's a single mom, a single woman raising her children. What would you say to these young men who have never met their dad or met them late in life? What would you say to them, to some practical advice to keep them moving forward? If you could just give them one golden nugget, what would it be?
I would say this: get to know your father. Get to know your father, or meet a person who could be a father figure, because it's so important for young Black men is to have someone strong who's been there where you're going and can help prepare you for what you may encounter and give you the skills, the abilities, and the understanding that you need in order to be successful and cope with some of the things. Because it's true that all is not fair, but the independent variable is you, what you want to do about it. So there's an old saying that says it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get up.
Get back up. That's right. That's right. How many times you get back up?
And so that's the thing. And I would say them, don't be afraid. Again, don't be afraid of failure, because sometimes we play safe and we take the easy road. Low expectations, but have high expectations for yourself, because you are God's child and you are somebody, and you are a mighty person. But that exposure, being able to be around people. I think I told you once I was at a business meeting. I was on one of the commissions in Virginia here. It's a pretty important commission. I won't name it, but it was pretty important. And it's a political appointment. The Republicans run this area. So I decided to get to know some of the Republicans, because I wanted to get on one of these very important and powerful commissions. And I was at a business luncheon that was at a restaurant at the Coast Guard Academy here. And as we were eating dinner, this white gentleman, businessman, walked up to me. Now, this is a business luncheon. We're talking about business opportunities in the county. And that's what he asked me. He said, how many points did Michael Jordan score in the game last night? And I'm thinking, now this is a business luncheon. I'm 6'4", and I fit the profile of an athlete. So I waited for a moment, then I said, Michael Jordan. I said, is that the guy that plays golf? I threw him off.
I guess you did. Well, certainly.
If I had answered that question, he probably was more uncomfortable with me being there, because you don't normally see the only blacks that were there. We were waiting tables. And often Arthur Ashe mentions that at going to board meetings and different corporate meetings he would go to, he always was looking for other African Americans, and he said we would be chauffeurs, or we would be greeters at the door, we'd be in the kitchen. And so I used that same information that Arthur Ashe talked about, and I always looked, and you could see their faces when I walked in. They had a smile on their face. They were glad to see someone that looked like them.
My Lord.
Was in there. So, all of that, I say your struggle, it will pay off. But you have to be, you can't be wanting this stuff immediate. We're in a society now where it's immediate gratification. We feel before we've really done anything that we deserve certain privileges that are unearned, but you feel that are owed to you before you pay your dues, before you make your effort. And when you work at something and you fail at it and you go back and try again, that's when you have resiliency. That's when you have self-confidence. These are some of the jewels that you're going to need as a father, as a husband, and as a person who's able to be successful in life and navigate these things. And when you don't, unfortunately, what happens, we talked about the mental health side of what happens is that people will use alcohol,
That's right.
use drugs, or they will be in dysfunctional relationships as husbands and fathers because of what's happening in their lives that they feel no control of. Because as African Americans, we have stigmas associated with mental health. And there's also the masculine side. Well, big boys don't cry.
Mm-hmm.
We don't hurt. So the more pain and the more stuff that we can take, the more masculine, but it's like dying by 1,000 cuts. So we've got to have a healthier thing. So I tell people, surround yourself with people who love you and care about you and who know you and who aren't afraid to tell you the truth and say, you need help. Or they're unafraid to tell you the truth. One of my best friends told me something one day. He said, you're afraid to go to graduate school because you might fail. And he had only gone to high school. So I told him, you've only been to high school. What do you know? And I told him to shut up.
All right now.
But I was so upset when I went home and I said, why are you upset? I said, because he told you the truth. You are afraid. I had to call him and apologize and tell him, you not only care about me, but you love me.
Yeah.
And I wound up going to graduate school.
Oh, okay. So we need to speak truth to our friends.
We need to know people who are unafraid to speak the truth, because sometimes your quote unquote friends are telling you what you want to hear and saying, yeah, they don't want us to succeed, blah, 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 blah. But I want people around me that said, I know you can do this, man, or let's get together and see what we can find out how we can do this. So you got to surround, you can't do it by yourself.
You can't do it by yourself. And you brought up the mental health. Mental health is a huge issue, and it's an important issue, and it's something that most Black men don't really care to go to a therapist, and really more women are more inclined to go to a therapist.
Yes.
I mean, I have my therapist. I love going to my therapist, to be honest with you. I think it's good for me. It's good and healthy for me. But you mentioned the mental health piece, so you have a huge understanding the necessity of it.
Well, I was involved in mental health.
Oh, okay.
But what I've learned also is that mental health has to be supported by spiritual health. The two are twins.
They are.
They
really are.
And when you only know one, that twin is too lonely to know that its other twin, God, is there for what you can't do just from a mental point of view. So, because in ancient Africa, if you were a doctor, you had to know medical, that was the physical, mental, and the spiritual. It was Westerners who separated. My mother talked about laying on of hands. My mother was used to that, and I remember that growing up as a child, doctors touch you with their hands, and it was like a healing thing. And my mother talked about how now when you go to a doctor's office, they put on gloves.
That's true.
And they don't touch, and they don't touch. But my mother was from a different generation. I can remember a lady named Mrs. Johnson in our neighborhood in Durham, North Carolina, who lived up a hill. You had to cross a little wooden plank and go up a hill. And my mother said she had something for us, and she had this big black iron cauldron, and she had this apron and this big stick, and she was stirring around stuff, and it had an awful smell to it. And then she would put it in a little cloth and tell us to take this home. And when we had fevers or when we had headaches or something, my mother would put that salve on our temples or on our chest. And it would heal us, because as slaves, we knew about the farming and the woods, what was in the woods, because we were still had some of those African things that we learned coming to this country. And people were living to be 80, 90, and 100 years old in those days, way before we got to modern medicine, because they knew about natural healing. You see. But now today, if we look at the disparity, I'm jumping around a little bit, but I think it's important we say this, the disparity we don't have enough people of color in positions of treatment that really are not only people of color, but are good, and they have a certain compassion and a connection with you when you're being treated or you're being received. It's nothing like going someone and seeing and knowing someone there looks like you. But when someone does not look like you, I can remember being in social work and some of the notes that the white workers made about promiscuity and morals. They had these in the notes of clients they're supposed to be helping. I had a black client to tell me, I don't want you for my worker because you're not going to take me downtown shopping like the white people do. And I said, no, I'm not. You're going to get on the bus, take these bus tickets and ride the bus. But sometimes when you have white workers, I'm not saying all of them, but most of them, they are very paternalistic or maternalistic towards the patient. And that is an improper relationship. My whole sense was that is to make you empower you and let you know you can change your conditions. And I had expectations.
Wow. First off, we're coming to the end of this conversation, which first off, just let me thank you so very much for this conversation because you've shared many, many golden nuggets. I have to decide which one I want her to really put up there because you shared so many. But let me ask you this. I got two last questions. Okay. My one question is, what legacy do you hope to leave with future generations? What legacy do you want to leave?
I think a legacy that I want to leave is a man who overcame obstacles because he learned to see things that others considered obstacles as stepping stones and not obstacles. Learn how to overcome obstacles and to understand that they are challenges. There are opportunities. Because see, your strength, if you continue to pick up a 1 ounce weight and never pick up a 2, 3, 4, you don't develop the muscles and the strength and the capacity to really know your true strength. Because we are infinite. We are infinite in our capabilities. We are created in the image of God. But it takes effort to get there. So when you're young, you have the power of observation. But now when you get the experience, that's when the wisdom and the knowledge blends with the experience and you become wise.
That's true.
And once you develop wisdom, then we talk about that old slave quote that the darkness is light enough, which means that the darkness outside is nothing because the light comes from the inside when you are enlightened. So you're never in the dark.
Never in the dark. That's so true.
So that's what I would say. My legacy is that this man accomplished so much with just a little because he saw the obstacles as opportunities and stepping stones.
Accomplished so much with little.
Yes.
Kind of paraphrase that a little bit. So
well, you don't need, you think you got to have money. You think you got to live in the right neighborhood. You think that you got to make all A's. My mother and I, we had a scholarship named after her dad, Samuel W. Jons, and we awarded that scholarship to kids who had B's and C's because we recognized that a lot of kids had to be big brother or big sister while mother was working extra hours, or they had a part-time job. And what you have in the current educational system is that the kids who get all the A's, they get everything.
That's true.
But the kids who are struggling, though, they aren't making B's and C's because lack of ability, but because of responsibility, dual roles that they have to play. But they need to be rewarded for their efforts too, because let me tell you something. If you level the playing field with them, they know more about overcoming obstacles and difficulties. And some of the people who, I'm not saying everybody gets an A is on E Street, but I'm saying they are just as competitive, but they understand what it means to overcome and to have faith and to keep trying over and over again, that resiliency.
Give me one word that describes Montez Johns.
I could come up with one word is believe.
Believe. Okay.
Believe. And when I say believe, I'm not talking about a belief that's not tested. I'm talking about one that keeps getting tested over and over and over again. That's what believe means. Because
So
every day ain't gonna be your birthday.
every day's not going to be a birthday. That's true. But you talked about faith, and now you're talking about belief, and that's the hope. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. That's faith, and so that's scriptural. So that's actually what you did. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You didn't see it. You had no idea how you were going to do it, but yet God accomplished it all. So my last question is this to you: when are you going to write your book? Because I've heard so many golden nuggets, and I'm wondering just when are you going to start that book?
You're
Or
the one million person
maybe
to
you already
ask me
started
that.
it. I'm sorry. Go
And
ahead.
I got to say that probably very soon because with AI now,
Yeah,
there's
that's right.
really no excuse. But you have to put the content in.
You do. You got to put
You know
some.
what I mean? And then it kind of comes together. So I would like to thank you for that. I keep hearing it, so it's got to be a part of my purpose. And I think I have a lot of stuff to put in a book
I think you do. I think you have a whole
uh,
to
that
put
once
in
it's
the
out there,
book.
people would want to read this thing because to me, it's kind of crazy. It makes no sense.
Mm,
When I say it makes no sense, I kind of feel like that I wasn't supposed to be able to do all this. And there are so many people that are in that category who dropped out or who just don't think that they count. I'll tell you this quickly because this is a good one. I had to do I was doing voter registration. I was knocking on doors in my neighborhood, and when I would go by the drug dealer's house or people who were just maybe a little bad character, I would knock on their doors because I was afraid. And I said to myself, I said, you know what? But their vote counts. Go knock on the door. And I knocked on the door, and the first thing they do is they look. One of them looked at me and started cursing, and one of them said, "No, let's hear what he got to say." And I knew then,
mhm.
whatever you say in the next 5 minutes, it better be good, okay? Because you in a bad place right now. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? A lot of things that are going on with you all. I said the reason that I'm here is because if you register to vote, that's the most powerful thing you can have. I said,
Mm.
if you're tired of the police harassing you and you feel like you're not getting just, I said, this daggone vote will erase that. I think there were 5 or 6 people in that room. I got 3 to 4 people to register to vote. I'll tell you another story. While I was walking down the street, this old man comes out of the house and he said, I got a letter and I can't read. Can you read it and tell me what it's saying? It's from the governor. This
Mm.
man had been in prison for 20 years and had his voting rights restored. And that's what that letter was telling him.
Oh my goodness.
And I helped him fill it out.
Look at God. See, you were right there at the right time. That's the kind of God we serve. I'm telling you.
But I'm saying being in the neighborhood, you see,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, the man ran out of the house because he was used to seeing me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying I developed a little bit of credibility and he asked me, and when I read it to him, I said, I'll help you fill this out and I will take it to the voter registrations office for you. The greatest compliment that I've ever had was from a drug dealer who said, I thought that you were an informant. But
Mm.
he said, all you've ever tried to do is to help us. He said, every time I see you, you're talking about something that I need to know that will make my life better. So he said, I came to apologize.
Mm.
So sometimes you have to earn
That respect.
your respect. It's not given.
Mm.
And people know when you care about them and when you're
They
just
do.
being fake.
They now that is so true. People know
Mm-hmm.
when you come with your real self. When you are intentional, they see it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hide that. You can't hide when somebody's real and intentional and sharing truth with you. So, but on that
Well,
note,
I would take it a little bit further. Aunt
okay,
Maya Angelou said, people may forget what you said and what you did, but they will never forget how I made you feel. It's how I made them feel.
that's true. That's absolutely true. That is so true. They might forget your but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Yes.
That's a good note for us to end this interview. First off, again, thank you so much, Montez, for having this interview with me. Thank you for sharing all those golden nuggets, and also thank you for sharing your story and how God has moved in your life to make you the man you are today. So, thank you, thank you, thank you, and of course, everyone, don't forget as we end this session to like, subscribe, and share. Touch the notification button to know when Pauline's coming back. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much.